Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, Sister Sheila.
Good afternoon, and any time of the day also to you, Patrizia. Thank you for inviting me here to be with you for this time.
I want to introduce briefly Sister Sheila, even though most of the sisters know her. Sister Sheila is a Sheila Kinsey, is a Franciscan sister of the Daughters of Sacred Heart of Jesus and Mary. And she's the current executive co-secretary of the Justice and Peace and Integrity of Creation Commission for the Both Union Men and Women. But she's also the USG International Coordinator for the Laudato Si campaign, Sowing Hope for the Planet. Sister Sheila has been very engaged and involved in building peace through justice and peace. So we are preparing the last meeting of the series of webinars and Sisters Empowering Women. So this interview is a must to go more in depth on the issue peace and integral ecology. So thank you very much, Sister Sheila, to be with us. I want to also to add, because we are talking about Sisters Empowered, that Sister Sheila was appointed recently by Pope Francis as a member of the Dicastery on Integral Human Development. So thank you very much, Sheila, for representing religious sisters at this level, which is very important. So thank you. You will be present as one of the speakers during our webinar, and you will help us to interconnect from a spiritual point of view peace and ecological interconnectedness. Could you please give us some inputs already here?
Yes, thank you for this. I like to be able to connect peace and nonviolence because our road to peace is through nonviolence. And when we're talking about the ecology, and ecology means both the social and environmental, and it includes many aspects. It includes the economy as well and cultural. So we need to be sensitive to where people are and how we can engage them. And that's why nonviolence is so important, because we're going and dealing with areas where there has been violence. And so we want to reconcile this moving forward from nonviolence to peace. And Christ is the one who helps us reconcile. And several years ago, I developed a process called Integrity for Nonviolence. And we even used it with our employees that were with us, our healthcare and in our housing ministries. And we used it as a way as an evaluation and looking at our behaviors. And it related to 4 values. One is creating respect. So really the basic dignity of the person of creation, and having it be non-threatening, really valuing the integrity of that person. And practicing honesty, looking at the truth in the matters and what's accountable and what's scientific. And then discover the true self. So being able to be at a sense where you're journeying within to see what is your true person. And looking at justice, promoting justice, accountability, responsibility, all that's important. And then healthy relationships, nurture those. Demonstrate that you're trustworthy and have the resources that you need to develop your person and your projects, whatever that's necessary. And it's from that sense of integrity, that deep place where we are alone with God. That's where we need to be. And so when we journey then for peace through this integral ecology in all of these dimensions, which Pope Francis says are interconnected, we need to be able to follow that path in a sure way from nonviolence to peace. And that's what I hope that we will share more in as the days go on and the years go on, because the journey is a lifetime.
Thank you, Sheila, for your passion. You are a Franciscan sister. So for you to be engaged for integral ecology, I think it's something natural, which is part of your charism. Now, I would like to ask you, Sheila, as a message for the sisters who will listen to you, which is the spiritual route for us as a women and consecrating women to be engaged in the integral ecology mission?
I think for us as women, part of it is in believing in ourselves and getting a sense of who we are, because in that area, we find God is present to us. So when we look at this ecology and the Franciscan roots, which I would use that as an example, to being in touch with our religious heritage. And for religious, it's our charism of our congregation. Whatever is there that helps resonate with that. And to find ways to enrich that every single day. So when we look at the roots of ecology, this is all about relationships, which I think this idea of compassion and reaching out to one another in a sense of giving life, which biologically women are physically formed to be life givers in many dimensions. And so being in touch with how can we give life? How can we be sowers of hope? How can we engage others into becoming more of who they are? And in doing that, we ourselves are energized and have a deeper sense of that. As the African proverb goes, I am because you are. And that's that deep part of the interconnectedness, as Pope Francis so carefully has called our attention to, that we need to be paying attention to. And that wherever our lives are, whatever our vocation is, whatever we feel our calling is, then we need to be responding to that. And one of my other dear saints is Saint Teresa of Avila, and she wrote her autobiography on her knees. She said, because God is as present in my life as in the lives of all the people that are in these scriptures. So I think our challenge is to believe it and to believe it all the way into our heart and to act on that belief and bring that belief to others and help others find that same belief for themselves.
This is really enriching and profound, Sheila. And listening to you, I have the impression that integral ecology is this connection, profound connection, is not something that we have to learn, but it's something that we have to become aware of.
Right.
So I think that the campaign Sowing Hope for the Planet and all the initiative that you are bringing about through the commission really will help the sisters and brothers to enter more in depth in this movement. Now we go to Fratelli Tutti.
Oh, yes.
From your observatory, Sheila, how are religious sisters implementing this wonderful letter on fraternity?
I think it's because it's so relational that as religious, we find, resonance with that in terms of how do we reach out. And of course, as Franciscans, it's a delightful time for us to be here. And using the term fraternity or fratelli, for Franciscans, that term also means that Christ is the head of who we are as religious. And so it's in following through that dimension and taking that to heart that Christ is our head. He is our leader. He is the source of our being and our strength. And I think religious, what I hear from them is the fact, because it is so relational, that they can find ways to do the dialogue, to create, be responsible in creating peace, to look at the different dimensions in their families, in their educational opportunities, and all the ways that they minister to others. It's there. And because Francis of Assisi walked both ways, he was for creation in terms of the environment, but creation in terms of the poor, and really being able to raise that up and to engage his own local time, but he's continued to be of a messenger for us as well. And I think with that, and using the parable of the Good Samaritan, and so carefully having us be all of the characters, and so Jesuit it that way, putting us into the scene, invites us in a freedom sort of way to know that we need to be involved and to be in touch with what he calls the seeds of goodness. And even though they're so quiet, they are that which continues to bear much fruit. So I think the definition of engagement and calling us to find ways where there's interconnection. And we'll be looking at it sometime this year on the dialogue with an interreligious dialogue. How can we find the connectedness, the positive ways out of which we are able to generate that energy? And so looking at what it is that can help each other become stronger and more grace-filled and better persons because we've engaged in such an encounter. So I think that is the key piece, the calling us to be faithful to all of our vocations. And he even uses, which is so interesting, the family as a kind of a paradigm to use with our politicians and say, can you be engaged in that? So he stretches all of us, but he gives us a tool to do that. And it's about listening and trying to be in the place of the other in a way that we can help that other grow. And in that process, we ourselves become more. And I think this whole idea of wisdom, which he is so fond of calling us to, is a feminine image in the scriptures, was present at the very beginning. And so that way of wisdom being at the waters of compassion and maintaining us on a path of truth. And so I think Fratelli Tutti helps us in that path of wisdom and calls us to a life of compassion and the importance of staying in the truth, the reality, and not making it something that we want it to be, but be courageous enough to be there with it. And I know that the sisters who are engaging in that process are finding some of these dimensions to be so helpful and help them be operative in their communities and in their ministries.
I don't have a lot to add, just to highlight a couple of things. You talk about encounter with small letter. I think this encounter is really connecting with a bigger encounter with the E, capital E, that in this case, we recognize that there is something that is behind us, which is bigger than us. I have just a final question, Sheila, which is connecting with the theme of the series of webinars, Sisters Empowering Women. Yeah. I wonder, from your point of view and from your experience, do you feel that empowering women is an important issue for social change in our society? Women, lay people, and consecrated sisters.
Oh, absolutely, I do. And Patricia, when I looked at that question, what came to my mind immediately was the work that I had done several years ago in domestic violence and sexual abuse, really accompanying women in a very, very vulnerable time, women and their dependent children. And it was through that process of the narration, creating a different story. Because in the 70s, so you can see, I can go back by looking at my hair here, go back when we were changing the narrative for a woman who was abused. Because at that time, she was either crazy, she was making up the story, and why can't she get out of that situation? So what we had to do is to really develop a story that we began to see that this is a dynamic that needs to be changed, and that we need to look at some of the legal issues. We have to look at how we are treating women, and we need to change these in order to make this a more wholesome partnering relationship. And in doing that and hearing the stories and seeing the courage of these women to begin to see a new life is very important. And I wrote my doctoral dissertation on truth and compassion, faith-sharing groups for victims of domestic abuse. And it was about the spiritual journey, and it's because we are needing to bring that forward. Where are we with Christ? Because often they would feel that God was punishing them. They had done something wrong. So we needed to find a way that they could be in touch with the God who cares for them and who believes in them. And one of the women who were a part of the work that I was doing for the doctorate asked to write my introduction. And she'd explain all of the horrors that she experienced. But she said, what I gave to her was a belief in her. And my belief in who she was and what she was about gave her the courage to believe in herself. And I think as women, religious laity, wherever we find ourselves, that it's our belief in one another and the gifts that we have and that we can share is so important because no one gets anywhere by ourselves. We need to be supportive of one another and to raise up those qualities. And so, whether it's, looking at the gender issues, but looking at how it helps really raise up both men and women or whatever persuasion we happen to be. How can we engender that belief in that person? And so it's not one to one up one, the one upmanship. No, it's a way that in our growth in ourselves, it gives us that security then to reach out to others and then to continue to grow. So what I find when I'm working with women and working with religious is to try to help them find that which is their deepest self. And as Teresa of Avila said, we're all made for a particular reason. And the truth of that, and to find that then as a way of connecting to whatever else we're trying to do. That deep sense, that love, really, and that's the Fratelli Tutti. How do we reach out in a loving way? And then are energized by that. And so with a loving compassion way, which women are, the inclusive nature that we bring, some of the other gifts that we bring that are kind of like, oh my goodness, our intuition, we can tell things just by looking at it. We don't have to study. We can go right to the point and tell you what's going on. And the ability to multitask. My goodness, to be able to do more than one thing at the time. Because of course, in family, you have to be able to give attention. So we bring some of these gifts and we want to, heighten them. We are there, very often taking the minutes of the meeting. So they're the ones that help bring good information for decisions. And we're asking then, because we have these gifts, to be at the table where decisions are made that affect our lives and affect those with whom we work. So it's about the narration. It's about being clear about what it is that we offer and to bring that forward in a way that is helping others to grow and to get a better sense of themselves. So that's what I'm journeying. I look and I see and I listen, in the scriptures, oftentimes Jesus says, they say, hear this, and you better pay attention. Or after he said, I hope you heard it, he's always reflecting. And I think that's kind of a gift that, when the Holy Spirit came to Mary and, she reflected on these words in her heart. That's, so that's our gift. When we bring it, not solely, but it's a feminine dimension. And it's not simply given to one sex or the other. And I think in bringing the feminine dimension, it will help both sexes to feel, or whatever, to feel that they are, in sync, because that dimension is one that's valued.
Sister Sheila, thank you very much. It was really very touching and profound, your reflection. And I think I can speak really on behalf of all the sisters that we support you. We pray for your mission because you are doing so well this implementing, this engaging, towards an integral ecology, which includes all human beings and living beings. So thank you very much. And as you can see, there is the website of the campaign that you can visit. You will find a lot of resources to pray, to be, to study, to reflect, and to organize meetings on this issue. So thank you, Sister Sheila, very much. And we wait for you next week, September 29, to talk more about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.